Yo, I love how we are jumping into this in a continuation of the conversation that we were already having. This is like phenomenal because the comments say, does this make us sexist? And then the next comment says, have you seen that meme that Jesus is trans because he was born to a virgin, so no Y chromosome? What is happening? What is happening? But also, this is, hey, strap in. If this is your first time, hey, we allow our brains to take field trips over here. But the trans part of it all, like the transfiguration of God, the ability to be able to shift. One of my favorite movies that I talk about often that I really really love is called The Shack, and it stars Octavia Spencer, and in the movie she is God. In the comments, see this, I be knowing. I be knowing. In the comments, it says, OMG, they just told me in Bible study to watch that last night. The Shack is the first movie that I ever saw that made it make sense for me how the Trinity operates, how God operates, how God uses things that happens in order to create this path that we're already predestined to walk. And it also goes into something that I believe very deeply in, that I heard Tabitha Brown say, is that we sign up for these lives and we sign up for whatever comes with that life because we are here. Our soul is here fulfilling a mission. My concepts of heaven and hell have shifted very much the more that I have been doing decolonization, active decolonization in my spiritual practices and beliefs, as well as learning more about the way that indigenous people operate as opposed to the way that white people and white Christianity told us that we had to operate. I know I might sound real hotep right now, but stay with me. To the point of the transfiguration and the concept of trans meaning change. Okay, I'm gonna also put in here, I'm a scientist, so I'm talking about words and what words actually mean. So trans means to change that prefix. God is able to change from form to form, and the shack does a beautiful job at showing how that happens and how God can show up as God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit at any given time, depending on how we need to connect. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Oh my God, I love that movie so much. So to answer the question, no, I have not. I don't be down there to the TikToks like that. So I don't really be knowing what's going on. And actually, it is something that I think during my break that I'm gonna try to do is like figure out that world in, because I had tiptoed over there, then I tiptoed back out. I don't really know what happened. Maybe I only had so many brain people, and maybe I need to reopen the TikTok department. Thank y'all for helping me talk through that. But no, I had not seen the meme, and I don't even know if that's where it was at. But I haven't seen the meme about Jesus not having a Y chromosome. But also, that is very possible because I, what is real right now? What is real, huh? Especially when it comes to thinking about the concept of Jesus, because they also, and I know when I grew up in the Lutheran church, that Jesus was very much white with blue eyes and blonde hair. I don't even when we transitioned out of Lutheran and then we became full gospel Baptist, I don't even know that images of Jesus were like around per se, but my core imagery of who Jesus was a Lutheran, white skinned, blue eyed Jesus. And that is the Jesus that I carried with me for a long time because that's the only Jesus that I knew. It wasn't until I started understanding more about, I don't think it clicked for me then either. And this is actually related. So let's just go here. And also, I need y'all to hang on at the end because I still got to tell y'all updates. We got to talk about rain and light, all the things, but we're here now. So, wait. Yeah, there's a lot of indoctrination, if you will, that has gone into how we and who we understand Jesus to be. So this is a great place to start actually in this conversation about activism, because what I need you to understand is that my foundations of being were very much centered in whiteness. Now, I grew up in New Orleans, okay, which is a majority black city. I didn't do my intro. Jesus, I've got too much going on. My God. Okay, pause me there. Pause me there with, because this how things be happening, y'all. And also, this is what happens when you're in the inner circle. You also get to be a part of my ADHD experience. Hey, y'all. I'm Kimberland, and this is the Frolicking Truth, a soft space for Black women who are tired, brilliant, and ready to heal. Here, joy meets justice. We calm our Black ass nervous systems, we unmask, and we leave behind whatever that is trying to kill us. You're seen here, you're safe here, and you don't have to do this alone. So, this is your first time. This is what it's like to be here. So, welcome. Hey, I'm Kimberland. Come on in, find a comfortable spot, take a seat. I am grateful to have you here with me for episode 27 of the Frolicking Truth podcast for Black women who are tired, brilliant, and ready to heal, where joy meets justice and our nervous systems get free. It is okay though if you don't identify with any of those descriptors. It just means that when you come ready to listen, ready to learn, and ready to support. And this is what happens, okay, when you are here, because we be in here having these talks, all right? So shout out to the inner circle. They are a part of the archive, which is the Patreon here at Minding My Black Ass Business. And that's where the people is at. All right. That's where the people is at. That's where the community is at. We have all sorts of collections and chats and conversations that are happening in the inner circles. So, and in the archive. The inner circle is my lane in the archive. That's my little slice, if you will. But yeah, and this is gonna come full circle too, because all of this was birthed out of my activism journey. Okay, so we're gonna have a lot of full circle moments today. So having said that, you can go to patreon.com/slash mind my black ass business to join the archive and then make your way down to the inner circle where my peoples is at. All right, cool, cool. So anyway, I had paused it at I grew up in New Orleans, because today we're talking about activism and how did I become an activist? How did I realize I was an activist? All of that. So I grew up in New Orleans. New Orleans is in the state of Louisiana, but it is very much not what your idea of Louisiana is. That is not New Orleans. New Orleans is a city. We do not have alligators in our backyards. We do not have airboats. We are not dressing in camouflage and looking like Duck Dynasty. Okay, New Orleans is very much a black city. And also, there are white people there. There were white people there at the time. There were also Vietnamese people, which is very interesting because those are the only type of people that I really knew existed in my foundational experience. Say New Orleans is an anchor of Louisiana and the Louisiana Purchase, which was a whole bunch of land that narrowed down to Louisiana. New Orleans was really a hub. Now, my experience, what I was about to share growing up in New Orleans, was very much centered in my foundational years around whiteness. So, my mother did not ever say it would be best for us to be white and be with them white people. But very much her actions were very much directed towards that. So from 3 years old in preschool all the way through eighth grade, I went to a small Lutheran school. All of my teachers were white. I already said Jesus was white there. And it was very much a white type of existence. I don't really know everything. Like all the picture books were white, like people were white, right? The students were not. So we did have a fairly diverse, and at this time, again, black and white diverse. I really didn't start understanding that there were like Spanish people in existence, and definitely not in school until maybe like third or fourth grade. I remember there was this boy, Chris, that came, and he spoke Spanish and his family spoke Spanish. And that was like fascinating to me because what are y'all saying? And then I remember in the apartments that we lived in, there was a lady that moved into there were three apartments, and she moved in the first apartment, and she would listen to Telemundo all the time. I remember just being fascinated because, again, I didn't understand what they were saying. My experiences were with Vietnamese people. Now, I don't have the history of the migration patterns of how Vietnamese people wound up in New Orleans. I've only done semi dives on that. I can't even call them deep, but it is something that's on my list of things that I want to learn more about. But we had, when I was growing up in New Orleans, a population of Vietnamese people, specifically in this area of the city called Michoud, which was in the east of New Orleans. And then outside of that, my experience with Vietnamese people was at the nail shop. And what I learned through my experiences is that they're probably talking about you because they're speaking a different language. So that I remember was very foundational because I used to have a very, very, very low tolerance for accents. Okay, so hold on to that. So then in my school environment, it was very much black and white. My teachers were white, again, Lutheran, it was very, the pastor was white, everybody was white. Somewhere around 8 or 9 years old, we transitioned into full gospel Baptist, and that was very black. Okay, so now I'm kind of getting those experiences, and that's interesting. But I'm still going to school, and there are lots of black kids at the school, but the teachers are very much white. But also, before I move on there, New Orleans is a very black city, but it's also very much the South. Okay, so I grew up in the times of David Duke. I was very familiar with the Ku Klux Klan. They would be in the Martin Luther King parades, marching down St. Claude with in between the floats and the dance teams and the bands for the Martin Luther King parade. I remember my mother taking us, again, because proximity to whiteness was important. So she would take us for Mardi Gras parades into an area called Metairie. And Metairie is out towards the airport. That Metairie, Kenner, these are suburbs of New Orleans, if you will, very white. So we would go out to Metairie to watch the parades because they were supposedly better and it was a better crowd and all that kind of stuff. And we got there one time, and I remember these white people like were so racist. Like it was a lot. Like they were pushing us, and we're kids. Like it was a lot. Kalanda might remember. She's in the chat. She remember she said your mom was gonna fight that lady, pushed us into the coolers. Yeah, that's the last time we went to a parade in Metairie. I remember that. And I remember being like, wow, this is interesting. But I also took it as individual acts. And I'll get back to that in a second. You're right, Kalanda. Oh my gosh, she just said we had black and white sides of things. Segregation was normalized. I never took it like that though. So, like the lakefront, there was a white side of the lakefront, there was a black side of the lakefront. But guess where we always went? To the white side. So, things with me were very much like this is just what you do. Like, I grew up in the Ninth Ward in Bywater. So, the lower Ninth Ward was across the canal, right? That was a very black area, if you will. But through there was Chalmette, another suburb. That's where we would go grocery shopping, to Chalmette. That's where we would go to the parks, to Chalmette. Everything was about get to where whiteness is. That was like the foundation. So again, around 8 or 9, we moved to this different church. We moved into a house. And this house was actually in an area known as Pontchartrain Park. So Pontchartrain Park was a historic neighborhood for black people who had purchased homes. Now, I'm not knowing this at the time, right? But I'm making sense of this later on. So, what was interesting about Pontchartrain Park, I tell these stories of, I say I used to go to the golf course when I was a kid. So, I always just needed to be away because there was a lot that was going on, and I was always very perceptive and trying to make sense of stuff. So, I used to ride my bike to the golf course. My great aunt lived across the street from the golf course, and there was this huge golf course. This was also very normal for me, so I didn't realize until later on that I'm telling people I used to be on the golf course, and they're like, "Excuse me," and I'm like, "It was a golf, like, I don't understand." It was very normal for me because I don't know any different, right? So anyway, there was this huge golf course, and there was a lake in the golf course, and I used to go, and that was my hangout spot, and I would have picnics at the lake, and I would just be at the lake all day until before the street lights came on, and then I would go home, right? So in this new neighborhood that we're in, and mind you, Bywater, where I grew up, a lot of my family lived in this neighborhood. It was black. I had a couple white friends when I was there, but I wouldn't have called it like super diverse, if you will. So then when I get to Pontchartrain Park, this is a very black area. There were white people around, but it was a lot of black people that were there that owned homes and all of that. So okay, wow. So then the proximity to whiteness kind of shifted into black elitism, which is also rooted in proximity to whiteness. So then it became about, okay, you need to go to the best summer science program over at Dillard, and you need to be on Xavier's campus, and this is a summer math academy that you can go to, a summer science academy. Oh, you because I was always smart. I was always at the top of the class, right? So then it was like, oh wow, we got something here, robotics academy, like engineering, like all of that. Like, so then that kind of became my world. I remember when it came to high school, I graduated valedictorian of my middle school. And so I had to pick, where I wanted to go to high school. Said all that to say. And I remember that I had a cousin who had gone to this all black girls' high schools. Now, this is the other thing that you need to know is that there are a lot of black Catholic people in New Orleans. Catholic school is the way to go. Right now, number two, what you need to understand is that we did not really have money like that. So I'm in these private schools, but I'm there on scholarship. Okay, this brain is what is getting me into these doors. Did Jack and Jill exist? It felt like it before it was a thing. I had heard of Jack and Jill. I feel like I started hearing about Jack and Jill maybe in high school ish, kind of, because that's when I really started getting into understanding what black elitism was. So I feel like that's when I started hearing about Jack and Jill. But very much, if you know what Jack and Jill is, very much we're chasing that now. All of the foci in my life were very much about that. So when it came time to make a decision for high school, and elitism is the thing, right? I had a cousin that had gone to this all girls black Catholic high school, and she was homecoming queen. And I thought she was so beautiful. And then I'm like, oh my God, look at all of these girls like that look like me. And like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I would love to do that. My mother wanted me to go to Benjamin Franklin, which is one of the, if not the top high school in New Orleans. And the reason I did not want to go to Benjamin Franklin is because I heard that there was very high instances of self-harm and students unaliving themselves because the pressure was so high to excel, and they were not doing a good job at that. And that did not sound appealing to me, to be in that type of environment. Nor did I really want to be in an environment where I had to like be mind on all the time. I just didn't want to. I failed that on purpose. Well, I still got in, but I didn't ace that like I could have. I was just like, cuz I don't want to go there. So I want to go to prep. So that's what I put my energy towards. And I made a stand in my mind that if I don't get into prep, I'm not going to high school. I'm dropping out in eighth grade. Hold on, let me get a couple comments. Yeah, the pressure was so heightened. Benjamin Franklin, and I don't know what the stats are now. It's definitely still there, but it was a lot that was going on at that time. I didn't need to be a part of that. Let's Talk Sis says, I definitely was in an all white environment. Many times was the only one because I was too smart. And in all the programs, probably why I go so hard for safe spaces for Black women now. Parallels, okay? What it had felt like, if you will, for up until eighth grade, because though the students around me were Black, like if you talk to people that I went to school with, they will tell you, they be like, hey, she was, we was trying to get her to tell us the answers and she was not going. Okay. She was, hey, like they know to this day that I was focused because remember, if you've been following along on this journey, I decided I was going to college when I was 8 years old because I knew I had to get out of my house. So, brains, I got it and I'm locked in, right? But also, I don't want to be locked in and in this high pressurized container where people are taking their own lives. I'm straight on that. And my cousin went to this school. Like, it's clearly a great school. So, I get over to prep. I get accepted, and now I'm around basically 98% Black girls. Black girls from all echelons of life. So, those who are also there on scholarship, like me, those who were getting called to the finance office every month because their parents were struggling to come up with the tuition. Again, I'm there on scholarship. Okay. Then there were Black girls who their parents were in government and they had access to everything they ever wanted. Like there were all of different types of girls there. The other thing that also became very interesting that I made a aha about a little while later in life, I did not realize that there were Black teachers before I got to high school. And now I have like majority Black teachers. And so that was like really, really interesting and started to shift like paradigms. I also had two religion teachers, Father John and Miss Robichaux, who were very Pan African, if you will. Father John was from Africa. I don't remember what region. And then Miss Robichaux was just power to the people all day. Now, I am not necessarily like getting on board with it, but I'm noticing, like I'm paying attention to what's happening. I've talked to you all about Miss Dillon, my guidance counselor who was a Delta. And so my mom also gets wind, Black elitism, right? So, oh, at the college campuses, sororities, that's the thing. She needs to get to one of those, right? So she put me in the way of being able to have that type of access, debutante balls, like all of that. So now my understanding of Blackness is now shifting to in a very elitist type of understanding. Like, oh, you're in the projects because you didn't work hard enough. Why would I go over there? Like it very much became clutcher pearls Black elitism because that's what I became steeped in. But I also knew that we did not have that access. Like I know I'm here on the scholarship. Okay. So I know that because it's the scholarship that's gonna help me go to college, because we don't have that. Like however much that you trying to, be posh and bougie, we also don't have that. So okay, I guess, right? All right, so now it's time to go to college. And I told y'all I'm smart, right? So I've got $1 million in scholarships. I can go anywhere I want to go. I got engineering programs. There are pre-med programs, the military. Everybody is just throwing money at me. Where should you go to college? And because of elitism, my mama wanted me to go to Xavier. I was not going to Xavier. I had went to Xavier Prep. So I'm like, I'm not going to Xavier. It was founded by the same sisters that founded my high school. Like it's a lot of the same people going over there. I would like to have a different experience. And not that I didn't enjoy high school. My high school was a very safe place to be a girl. And I didn't have to worry about a lot of dynamics that other people had to worry about in school. And like it was, and I was insulated because I was in the honors classes. So I really went to school with like the same, 20 girls or whatever, most of the time, the same homeroom group most of the time. Like, so it was kind of very insulated. And high school was a very safe place for me to be, but I also was good on that. I've experienced this now, and I would like to have something else, please. Which is also why I didn't want to go to Spelman, which is where she wanted me to go, because I was like, I've done the all girls thing. It was great. And also now, something else. So, Tulane came up because I'm going to school to be a doctor at this time. So Tulane comes up and it's the top medical school in the country or at least in the state or whatever, and you should go to Tulane. So I start pursuing Tulane. I'm smart, but also their cutoff for like full scholarship, I want to say I had a 31 on the ACT. The top was a 36. You had to have like a 33 to get the full scholarship. So they gave me half. And I was like, we don't have no money. So where is the other half supposed to come from? Like I don't have that, right? So once Tulane got off the table because who is paying for that, then I was kind of in this space of I don't even care, bro. I don't even care what I just got to get out this house. I just got to get out this house. I don't care. I will just go to LSU. So this is me walking into Miss Dillon's office in March of my senior year, number 3 in the class, with $1 million in scholarships. And she is like, girl, where is you going to school? And I was like, I'ma just go to LSU. And she said, you ain't just about to do nothing. Sit down at that table and take out every one of them letters and you make a pile and you tell me why it is a no. That is how Fisk came up, right? So I'm sitting in Ms. Dillon's office. She asked me about Fisk University. Fisk had only offered me $800. I'm telling you these credentials because I need you to understand what's happening. So, like, I'm National Merit Scholar. Like, I've got all. I'm president of the NHS. I'm National Honor Society. I'm president of the Spanish Club. I'm president of the Latin Club. Like, I got a resume because I done did this so I could get into school, right? So Miss Dillon knew the director of admissions at Fisk, and she called him, and she was like, "Hey," and he was also from Louisiana. He was from Thibodeau. So she was like, "I think you need to take another look at this package because I think y'all made a mistake." Basically, I'm sitting in the office. I don't care no more. I really don't. I'm like, girl, I'm finna go live under a bridge. Like I don't care. Like I just got to get out this house. And Fisk calls back. They offer me full scholarship. They offer me research opportunities, room board, books, fees, all the things. And we want to fly her up here next week so she can see the campus. Remember, keep in mind, Black elitism. Fisk is what one would call Black Ivy League. Okay, so once she started doing her research, oh, yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what this talking about, right? But in my mind, I get up there. The moment I step foot on Fisk campus, I felt our ancestors. So Fisk was one of the stops on the Underground Railroad. There are literal tunnels underneath Fisk University. The history of the Jubilee Singers. The Jubilee Singers are the reason that Nashville is called the Music City. The Jubilee Singers saved Fisk University. The first permanent structure on the campus of Fisk University is called Jubilee Hall. So I'm getting all this information as I'm walking on Fisk campus. I was not necessarily at the time, I got to go to HBCU at all, but I very much, because I had also gone to FAM, I hated it. I hated it. I was like, I don't, it felt like a fashion show. It was just a lot. I was like, I don't want to do this. It was a lot of people. And that's the other thing is to know I've been in these small schools, right? So my preschool through 8th grade was like 100 kids. My high school was like 500 kids. So FAM had, I don't know how many kids, but it was a lot. Fisk only had 1,000 students. So I also felt like it was a place that I would be able to be seen and I wouldn't get lost in a sea of students. So I walked the campus of Fisk. They tell me all the history of Fisk, and I just got goosebumps just all over the place. And I said, I'm going to Fisk. Okay. So I get to Fisk, and mind you, my degree is in biology. So I took a lot of science classes. I did not have the opportunity to sit at the feet of the scholars that walked the campus of Fisk University, Dr. Collins or Dr. Mitchell, or like I just didn't have that because I was stuck in the lab the whole time learning science. But there's something to being in an environment where activism was lived. Like, if you know John Lewis, who was a congressman, he's famously known for talking about getting into good trouble. And John Lewis was very instrumental in formulating what is it, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and a lot of the civil rights movements started. Diane Nash, Nikki Giovanni, like these are people that went to Fisk University. So that is just steeped in Fisk. Fisk was also founded in 1866, which was a year after the abolition of slavery, and was founded to be a school for teachers and evolved into, this magnificent institution. So you kind of get things by osmosis a little bit, right? There's kind of this spirit of challenge thinking and think about things critically that does exist in that environment. So it kind of started to open my eyes. But one of the things that opened my eyes when I first got to Fisk University's campus is how much bias my ass held. So I'm standing in line, and I don't remember what the line was for, but I was just amazed at how many different types of black people that there were. So keep in mind, high school I started seeing like these, different types of black girls, but now we're in college, there are black people from all over the place, but I don't realize that. So I think everybody is an African American. And I said that out loud. And somebody turned around and was like, let me tell you where I'm not from is America. I am from Jamaica. I am from the Bahamas. I am from Nigeria. I am from Eritrea. I am from not America. And I was like, oh, and they would say things on campus like, well, in my country, XYZ. And I would say things like, you're not in your country anymore. Because remember, I told you I had a very, very low tolerance for accents and understanding what was happening because I had been taught they talking about you in a different language. And the cultivation in the US is that if someone has an accent, it is an indication of their level of intelligence. So there's also like this condescending like nature of why someone doesn't speak the quote unquote standard English, right? Now remember, I'm black elite, if you will, but also not, because I know we ain't got it like that, but also you and your accent go back to your country. That's very much what my mindset was. I remember having a conversation with someone, and they said something, they used the term wetback, and they were from Texas. And I was very confused about what was happening. And I asked for clarification on that, and then grew to understand that that was actually a term that was used for Mexicans that people would say because they say that they had swam across the river. And I remember being like, I don't think we're supposed to, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's okay to say those things. So over my time there, I had to confront the different biases that I was holding that I didn't realize that I was holding because of the way that I had been cultivated, and because of the both overt and covert things that had been programmed into my existence. So I started to question. I remember that I had the opportunity to take a class with Al Gore. And that was interesting because I started to learn about like climate and like all that kind of stuff, and just again started asking questions. But yeah, so over this time at Fisk, I wind up going to like different meetings or meeting. I forget his name. There was a black surgeon general that I had an opportunity to meet. And I got a chance to go to Meharry, which was the first black medical school, and it was right across the street. And I really just kind of like started to broaden my understanding of blackness and what that meant for me, and how I was supposed to be showing up up in blackness. Now, when you take this blackness and then also align it next to the church, because there's also a level of elitism in the church where you start to chase power and influence, and those lines get real blurred. So while I was seeing stuff, I still was very much not consciously making choices to say you need to show up as a better person, probably until I started teaching. So once I started teaching, I can say I definitely became more aware of differences, but more so I became more curious. And I would see myself in a lot of my students, and I was starting to make sense of the things that I had experienced. So I started getting really curious about things like trauma and how that manifests and what that looks like and what that sounds like and how it's impacting my students. And I always had, because I went to this all girls school, so I always had this pull towards girls and like empowering girls and helping girls to see themselves and like helping them to understand that they are smart and you don't have to pretend like you stupid. Like, girl, I just came from a high school, all of us was smart, girl. We was like, I've been in environments where it's all girls and we in here killing it. Why? What is happening? So I was trying to understand that dynamic of what that looked like and why my girls were shrinking within the classroom, when I know when I'm talking to you one on one, you able to explain it down. So there was social things that were happening. So I started getting really, really curious about that. I always taught in schools that were high needs schools. So I always taught in schools where students were experiencing high levels of poverty, where there were challenging behaviors, where it was in some type of correction status. And because of my work with girls and wanting to empower them, I wound up being the step team coach. And because we were at this school, so the school that I started teaching at, when I got to the school, it was an A school, but they changed the district lines the year that I started, which was in 2006. So we had an influx of students that came from the inner city of Tampa. This is in Tampa, Florida. So they came from the inner city of Tampa and they were bused into the school in the suburbs. And so there was a lot of like animosity and disconnection, if you will, from the school because it was not a part of their community. Their parents didn't necessarily have transportation to get there. So I started seeing like these disparities between what was happening with our students. So as I'm on working with the step team, there are girls who want to be on the step team, but they can't be on the step team because they got to take the bus home. And we don't have an activity bus to be able to take them home. So the only way that they could do that is if they have a ride home. So then I started taking girls home. So then when I was taking them home, I was seeing the neighborhoods that they were living in and how much poverty they were experiencing, which made me understand how much poverty I did not experience because we were on the line. Like, we didn't have the government assistance, but we did have to go to the food bank. Like, so we were on that line, but it could have been so much worse. So I started seeing that with my students and just really got very curious about what was happening and why, how can we help them to be successful? How can we help their parents to be able to connect? And gratefully at this school, I was around amazing educators like Dr. Candace Johnson and Michelle Richardson and Michelle Knox, and like people that were so committed to saying, we are going to bridge this gap. So we started doing conference nights in the neighborhood. We would go into the kids' neighborhoods and we would have a fish fry and we would have a representative from each team that came so that you might not be able to talk to that exact teacher, but you can talk to somebody on the team. So we were like doing a lot of that work, and it really helped me to see the systemic issues that were present in education that so many people are not aware of. Because first of all, why are these kids even at this school when this is not the school that's closest to their home? Well, the reason they're at the school is because the schools that are closest to their home were all turned into magnet schools. And magnet schools means that students have to have certain test scores to be able to get in, and they only reserve a few spots for neighborhood kids. So if you don't get the lottery, which means your name is pulled to be able to go to that school, then they got to ship you out to another school that's these kids were spending 2 hours on the bus going home because they lived that far from the school. So I started seeing stuff like that, and it just became really, really bothersome to me. So I left the classroom to be a new teacher mentor. Within the new teacher mentor cadre, there was a woman who happens to be white. Her name is Dr. Amy Samuels. And she was a professional development facilitator, and she also had degrees in African American studies. And her work was dedicated to disrupting systemic racism. She developed a training called culturally responsive teaching, and she introduced me to this concept of the cultural competency continuum. And I want to pull it up because I think it is definitely appropriate in this conversation that we are having here to understand how this continuum works. So the most important thing to understand is that it is a continuum. And when something is a continuum, that means that it's fluid. You could be at different places at different times on this continuum. This cultural competency continuum is something that Dr. Amy Samuels introduces an abbreviated version of this in this training. So basically, on the left, you have cultural disruptiveness, all the way to the right, where you have cultural proficiency. So, cultural disruptiveness means that you are very much supremacist, if you will. So, very much rooted in being destructive to other cultural groups. Your attitudes, your policies, your programs, everything is geared towards that. You're all about forced assimilation, white dominance or male dominance or Zionist. Cultural disruptiveness looks like that. So then the next place is cultural incapacity. That is where you are supporting systemic racism, supporting whatever ism that it might be. You are upholding stereotypes and unfair hiring practices. You are not responding to the needs of diverse groups. You're just not even, nope, we're not doing that. Then we move into cultural blindness, which is where you're ignoring the things that are happening. So this is very much treat everybody the same. I don't see color. Why can't we all just get along? People are people. Even sometimes love is love can be very cultural blindness, but still you're still catering to the dominant group. Like you're not disrupting anything. You're still very much, let's just kumbaya and everybody just hold hands and be all right, right? Then we get to cultural pre-competence. When you start to ask yourself questions. So now you're asking yourself cultural issues. What is actually going on? What are the needs or people that are not being addressed? You start to become aware of things from a systemic level as opposed to individual one-on-one things that are happening, and you start to kind of become more responsive, if you will, to things that you are seeing, building more empathy for different types of diversities, languages, such and so. Cultural competence is where you recognize that there are individual and cultural differences. You are actually looking at diverse groups and like putting yourself in those spaces. You are making intention to create culturally unbiased groups. You are working on a systemic and organizational level to be able to educate others and make others aware of how they might be showing up in these particular areas. And then cultural proficiency is when you are at a place where you're implementing change. You are actively disrupting. You are actively looking for ways to add to your knowledge base, to understand what is happening, to seek somebody else's lived experiences. You're mentoring others. You are pursuing that development. You're working systemically to be able to support people as opposed to destroy. You're advocating for those whose voices are not heard. All right. Now, this became very much like a mind shift for me, if you will, because one, I love a good assessment. All right. So when I have an opportunity to see where I am on things, then I'm like, okay, let me, figure out like where I sit on this. And what I realized is though I was not culturally disruptive or culturally, but I had not culturally disruptive, culturally had cultural incapacity, is the way that I was treating people who had accents. And I was like, I need to work on that because they speak multiple languages. I only speak this one. So, how dare I put myself in a position to look down on them because they have a different accent? There used to be a lot of Haitian guys that used to try to holler at me. I don't know why. I guess whatever area of the city I was in this Haitian bubble, but their accents were so thick and I couldn't understand. And also, I am an auditory processor. And if I'm not auditory, I'm visual. And so they would try to call me on the phone, and I can't read their lips to understand what they're trying to say. And then because of the accent, it's different. So I don't know what you're trying to say. And it would just frustrate me to high heavens. So what I started having to do is I started having to like listen with intention to people that had accents so I could understand they are speaking English. It's just with a different cadence or they put inflection in a different place, but you are able to understand them if you try. So that was something that I was like, interesting. I didn't realize that I was doing that, but now that I know, I want to do better. But also when it came to like black women and at this time this was like 20 between 2012 and 2016. So Trayvon Martin happened in this time. And so very much felt like I was culturally proficient in speaking about what it felt like to be a black person growing up in the or living in the US. I felt I was very culturally proficient there. But when it came to how I was not being compassionate, understanding, or shoot, I wasn't even hardly at sometimes being tolerant of people who had accents, I realized there was some work that I needed to do. And I gave myself grace for not knowing better, if you will, before. But now that I know better, now I can do better. So Dr. Amy Samuels really like opened up a whole new world for me. And I've started really pursuing these types of professional development opportunities. And I started facilitating these types of trainings. So I really fell in love with anything that had to do with cultural competence or which then extended. And this is what I want to say. I don't know what it's like in Tampa, Florida right now, but let me ring the bell, blow the horn, and toot the horn of Jamelia Jackson, who I don't know if she's still there, but at the time she was the director of professional development. And she was the one who created and curated this container for new teacher mentors. It was a grant that was through Bill Gates, actually, through the Gates Foundation, and it was a nationally known grant that we had this opportunity to be a part of. And basically the core of the grant was us supporting first and second year teachers and administrators and supporting first and second year teachers so that we could retain teachers, actually retain teachers within the workforce. Jamelia Jackson, who is also a Delta, by the way, who was the director, created these cadres of mentors, new teacher mentors, who were really focused on equity and retaining teachers of color, black teachers specifically, and helping to match the demographics of our students with the demographics of the teachers that were sitting in front of them. Being a part of that new teacher mentor cadre and being in those spaces with those leaders in Hillsborough County, Florida, was transformational in my experience of who I am, what I know, what type of educator I am, the type of equity work that I do, because we were constantly being challenged. We were constantly having to think about our bias. We also worked with an organization called New Teacher Center, which was out of Chicago, and they were the ones who did our training, and it really was equity based. So the work that I was doing was just so transformational. We were seeing it. We went from like a 70-80% retention rate to over 92% retention rate with this program that we were doing. But the biggest part of that was the clear objective that we are doing this to support our students of color because there is an achievement and access gap that is happening. So I started having a lot of these really foundational conversations and looking at data and really just becoming an expert in what I do and how to create and curate these spaces. So that work that I did in Hillsborough County, it is very much one of them go Google me and go ask somebody about me. Okay? Because it was very transformative. So around 2016 or so, the grant was cut and so we all went back into different spaces and I chose to go back to a school that I had mentored at the whole time. It's named Memorial Middle School in Tampa, Florida. And when I got to Memorial, it was really important for me to continue the work that I had been doing. Memorial was considered a failing school at the time. It was very much about if y'all don't get it together, we finna shut this place down. We finna take this over, right? So there was so now this is kind of like the T part. This is the part where I'm like, okay, so let me fill in these gaps of the things that happened. So this is approximately 2017. Listen, y'all, this episode is getting a little too long, so I'm gonna unpack all the Tampa tea in next week's episode. What if the thing you've always called too much was the exact thing God designed on purpose? This is for the ones who've always known they were different. Too sensitive, too loud, too knowing, too intuitive, too woo-woo. But what if your sensitivity is actually your superpower? What if your intuition was your inheritance? Discover Your Destiny is a 10-week sacred journey back to yourself. We explore the design of your soul, your spiritual gifts, and the unique way that God speaks to you. This isn't church. It's not a rule book. It's not a performance. It's the moment you stop chasing approval and start walking in divine alignment. You'll gain clarity, language, and confidence around who you are and what you are here on the earth to do. You'll learn the real voice of God. And if you feel called to go on to become a certified intuitive melanated life coach, this is where that path begins. There are 2 ways to enter this sacred container: the Destiny track, full investments and coaching experience, or the Divine Exchange track, where internship meets soul work. You'll support podcasting, content creation, or brand development behind the scenes while learning how your unique gifts benefit the collective. Your knowing isn't a flaw, it's the fingerprint of God. This is your invitation, and I hope that you'll answer. So anyway, so now I moved to Pennsylvania, all right? And now I have a chance to advocate for kids across the state of Pennsylvania, specializing in school improvement, school climate and culture. So I'm a school transformation specialist specializing in school climate and culture. Also, it's 2020, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd. Like all of these things are happening and have happened along this time because remember I mentioned Trayvon happened when I was a mentor and that's what really like shifted me into thinking about cultural competence and all that, but they didn't stop killing people. They only just was killing us more. So things are continuing to happen over this time. So by the time I get to Pennsylvania, I have all these experiences, but I'm still not understanding how systemic things really, really are. So I want to pull up one more graphic. If you remember when I told you, like when we went to the Mardi Gras parade and all that kind of stuff back when I was in New Orleans, thinking about the Ku Klux Klan, thinking about David Duke, thinking about these different things that have happened over time. I very much was thinking about things on an individual level. Like it was very much that is a bad person. That is why they act like that. What I was not understanding is that this is more than this is a bad person. This person is operating within a larger system that has the opportunity to operate even outside of their individual acts. So I want to pause here for a moment and explain this graphic. This graphic shows the four levels of racism and explains what I'm talking about as far as the individual versus systemic or structural. So, on the left, you can see that we have the personal level of racism, which just exists in the private beliefs that somebody might have, their prejudices and ideas that they have as an individual. That personal then extends into interpersonal. So now we have these same beliefs that are showing up expressed between different individuals or towards different individuals. Then we go to the institutional level. Institutional talks about discriminatory treatment, policies, and practices within organizations and institutions that continue to uphold systemic racism and white supremacy culture on a level as far as within our organizations. Then, when we get to the structural level, is thinking about the system in which public policies, institutional practices, and other norms perpetuate racial group inequality. So, what this looks like is how those institutions then work together to create a structural framework that upholds systemic racism and upholds a culture where only certain types of people benefit. So, healthcare, education, housing, banking, and financing, all of these structures are working together in order to ensure that certain types of people have access while other types of people don't have access. So, this is where we enter things like our voting rights and gerrymandering and redlining and refusing people who don't have health care insurance, along with underfunding public schools. All of these institutions work together to create a structural framework that only gives access to certain types of people. So once I got to, by time in Tampa, started to uncover some of the systemic things that were happening. But once I got to Pennsylvania, and now I'm working at a state level, granted a different state, but now I have the understanding of what was going on in Florida. Now I'm at this state level with access to national information, and I'm realizing this is not individual acts. Like, this is a very systemic and structural thing that has been designed to ensure that our children do not achieve. And the levels of indoctrination that have been happening within our schools is so deep and we don't even know. And how do I know? Because I've worked myself out of it. But there are so many people who don't understand, don't realize that this is so much bigger than what we're looking at on the surface. The other thing that happened in 2020 is I started working with this company that I work with where I was doing professional development. And we had a training during that we were like talking to white people about their whiteness. Like, this was big BLM, like we finna talk about the things season. So we are talking about systemic and structural racism and how are you upholding these structures and what are you doing to actively disrupt these structures. So through my work with that organization, I started to find even more language about what was actually happening and what could be done in order to support our kids. So that was also happening. So then, when I started experiencing the level of structural oppression that was happening within the Department of Education, and just came to an understanding no matter what we do, they're not going to let the kids be okay. No matter what we do, they're going to ensure that students fail, that schools fail, that things do not turn out the way that we are thinking they should be able to. That is what ultimately broke everything in me. And I said to myself, you are activist, sis. Because at this point, I can't unsee what I saw. I can't unknow the things that I've known. I can't unhear the conversations that we've had. And I have all of these experiences that are showing me exactly how this works. So once that started happening, that was kind of like the pre-breakdown, before the breakdown of, wow, this is really wild and this is really a commitment. That is when I wound up coming to Medellin and then deciding that I was going to leave the US. Now, once I've left the US, the activism has only gotten stronger. And now I lead a lot of times with that I am an activist. And I think it is important for people to understand that because everything that I do, links to empowering people who look like me. Everything. Every decision that I make, even if it is me popping my ass on this internet. Y'all know why I be popping my ass on this internet? Matter of fact, let me also say this because I didn't do all the updates at the beginning, but I'm gonna go ahead on and do this update right now. Y'all, we at 1,500 subscribers, y'all. We are at 1,500 subscribers. And that is a pop that ass worthy occasion. But the reason why I be doing that is because so many times we get boxed in that we can only be a certain type of person and we can only exist in these certain boxes. And we are whole ass people. We are whole ass people with whole ass experiences. That's why I curse on the internet. That's why I be shaking my ass on the internet. Because just because I do that does not mean I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I absolutely know what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm finna shake my ass on the internet. Why? Because it's mine and because I can. Because I can. Right? And it is a level of resistance. It is a level of revolution. I am going to be free in my body. I am going to allow myself to dance because I'm literally just dancing. It's also cultural, and it allows us to get connected back to our roots. You know, my people originated in Cameroon on the continent of Africa, you know what I'm saying? And a good little ass shake that them juices flowing, get that blood flowing, okay? Let that backbone slip, you know what I mean? Sometimes we need that. That's also where a lot of trauma is stored in our hips. So if we can let that loose, then we'll be able to be a lot freer in our being. So everything that I do is because there is so much systemic and structural oppression that has caused us to be shells of ourselves. And I believe that we should be free and need to be free and can look for that freedom in so many different places. So I'm gonna pause there with the stories and things. Y'all gonna have to ask me the other things that you want to know because child, I could be here all day. But I also want to give y'all some updates about some things. I already told y'all we're actually over 1,500 subscribers. We're actually at 1,504 subscribers as of today. The people is coming. Okay, the people is coming. And I love that for us. So, welcome to our new subscribers. Thank you for taking this journey. Thank you for being here. Thank you for strapping in for the shenanigans and the foolishness, as well as the knowledge and expanding your mind because what we are well rounded over here. Okay. So that was one of the updates I wanted to give. Earlier, y'all were giving me compliments about Raina and saying that her curls are popping. So I did do something different this time. Raina got washed on, today is Wednesday. So what was that? Was that two? That was Monday? Might have been Monday that Raina got washed. And what I did is back here in this part of my hair, I did olive oil and the Auntie Jackie's curl cream, and that's it. Okay, so this is big wash and go energy. But then y'all know how I've been talking about that little patch that wasn't really doing right. I went on and did a twist out, so that's why these curls look a little bit juicier. Because I went on and did a twist out. It had been twisted for 2 days, and I just undid it this morning. But I haven't like separated it because I know once I start separating it, then it's just gonna get bigger and bigger. But I feel like I might have to do that for a little while so that the curls in the front can do a little bit better because sometimes they just don't be doing right. But Raina is very hydrated, and I'm very much proud of her. And she just really, kind of hanging out. And I really like it. It has not been as tedious for me to do my hair as it has been in the past. And I'm just so grateful for that because it really used to feel like it was a big old situation. And it is not lately. So shout out to washing your hair more often. Who knew? Who knew that it could make a difference? But it really does. So that is my Raina update. I also wanted to add that y'all know I'm finna go on this break. I'm still very excited about it. I'm very much looking forward to the time off and the time away, but you all will still continue to get content. So please, keep checking in and interacting with the content. There will still be live premieres. I may or may not pop in, but there will still be live premieres during that time so you all can talk to each other during that time. That would be absolutely lovely. Also, gonna drop, I will be giving a teaser at some point for the new podcast that we have coming out. And I'm really, really excited about it. So, we're working on that now to get a clip or something to share with you all. So, I'll be infusing that in one of these videos that I am pre recording. So, that's gonna be really exciting. I can't wait to introduce that podcast to the world. I think it's going to be a really, I don't think, I know it's going to be a real good time because I'll be watching it cracking up. I'll be like, man, this is a good time, huh? We having a good time. So that is also coming up. So be looking out for that. What else do I have on here? The healing circle is happening directly after this at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. Y'all have had daylight savings time. So now and when I say y'all, I mean those of y'all in the US, y'all have had daylight savings time. So I am now on Eastern time. Okay. But Colombian time did not move. That's what I want you to know. But y'all's time had moved. So now I align with Eastern time. So just saying it. So when these premiere, it's going to be 11 a.m. Colombian time, which is Eastern time, which is 10 Central. You understand? Y'all see how that works? Yeah, child, this time zone math brain has been a lot. It's a lot that's going on. So anyway, do the math. All right, do the math. I understand why Kev on stage be saying that now, because child, do the math. All right, put in Colombian time and then ask chat to tell you what time it is where you at. Whew. So anyway, the healing circle is going to be happening directly after this. If you have not registered, please go to tinyurl.com/Black Women Healing Circle. It is a space only for Black women. If you're not a Black woman, I'm so sorry. This is not the space for you, but please do pass it on to a Black woman. I also wanted to quickly say before we go, it was election day yesterday. It was election day yesterday, and it was a lot that happened down at the election day. One of the biggest things that happened is Zoran Mondani won the mayoral election for New York. And that was a really big upset and very much showed how grassroots can mobilize people and get people behind a cause that actually works for the people. So I'm curious to see what that's going to look like. I haven't done any deep dives or watched any think pieces or anything about what this means and all of that, but the people are celebrating. There was also the Virginia governor is a Democrat, as well as the Virginia, Lord, I can't talk, as well as the Virginia Attorney General. The Detroit has their first black mayor. California passed Proposition 50, and Proposition 50 has expanded or let me say gerrymandered, because that's what it is gerrymandering, has gerrymandered voting districts in California to be able to compensate for some of the gerrymandering that has happened in Republican areas to offset the balance in the House, in the U.S. House. So that's going to be interesting to watch. So yeah, it's a lot that happened on the election day that we may want to pay attention to. And then lastly, y'all see my fan, huh, girl? Y'all see my fan. Listen, y'all, I'm 44. Okay. And the other day I was in the store and I said to myself, let me go see what kind of accessories they have. And I looked at the accessories and saw they had a fan. And I said, you know what? That needs to come home with me. Because there do be times where it be hot. Okay. And I got on this sweatshirt. And let me say, this is the last thing I'm gonna say before we go, because I also have to do heal that shit, or I have to meet with Bianca in a little bit. This is this is some of the merch of what I have made for Minding My Black Ass Business. What I want y'all to know is that Minding My Black Ass Business was birthed out of all of this activism, all this stuff that I've been talking about. And it really came from this space of asking myself, why don't they just let us mind our black ass business? Like, all I want to do is mind my black ass business. I was literally sitting in Pennsylvania and I said that out loud to myself. And that is how Minding My Black Ass Business was born. It has now evolved from just t-shirts or just something that I said, to an actual movement, an actual collective, an actual space where you can find community. But I do want to uplift that there is merch. Okay. So if you go to mindingmyblackAssBusiness.com, you can find merch there. Make a purchase. All right. It helps directly. Okay. So make a purchase. It does ship worldwide, and it really is a worthy cause and goes into all the activism and advocacy work that I do and be doing behind the scenes. So I really appreciate your support with that. Most importantly, though, I would love for you to come and join me in the inner circle in the archive. That would be the most amazing thing that you can actually do. It's $5 a month to be a part of the archive, and I have been posting videos and orientation videos and updating the different collections that are there, because when you come, I want you to know how to navigate around, how to talk to others, how to decide what type of keeper that you are going to be. Keepers is what everybody is who is in the archive, and you decide what that looks like for you. Are you keeping culture? You keeping recipes? You keeping music? You keeping these jokes alive? You keeping that ass popping? What you doing? You know what I mean? Because all of this is stuff that we need to be holding on to and documenting within history. So please come hang out with us down to the archive and make your way to the inner circle. That is my little slice there in the archive. If you go to patreon.com/minding my black ass business, that is how you are able to join the Patreon. And then you also get to hang out as we are recording the show live and communicate and be shout out during the show and all of that. But if you're not able to do that and you're like, girl, I want to support you, but also times it's hard right now, because I understand. I understand SNAP benefits still haven't been restored, and the government is still on furlough, and people having to go to work and not getting paid. I get it. This is a free way that you're able to support by watching my videos through, liking, leaving a comment, sharing the video. All of that matters, and it lets the algorithm know that people are actually listening and paying attention, and it amplifies it so that more people who are looking for this type of content are able to find it. So the two things that rose to the top for me, the first of these is awakening isn't a moment. It's a lifetime of seeing more clearly and choosing to act anyway. The second is every step toward consciousness is an act of resistance in a world built on forgetting. That last one really resonates with me because there's a lot that's trying to be forgotten right now. And to the point of us being keepers in the archive, that's our job right now, is to really lean in so that we can keep these movements that keep us safe, that we can continue amplifying the voices who are speaking the truth, and that we're really able to hold on to the customs and cultures that that people have tried to strip away from us so many times, right? So the more that we become aware and the more conscious that we are, the more that we can make intentional decisions to ensure that people will know that we were here. So I invite you to join me, and I thank you for being witness to this journey and for being a part of it. All right, that's it. That's all, y'all, for today. I appreciate y'all for hanging out, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Frolicking Truth, where joy meets justice and our nervous systems get free. Please be sure to like, rate, and comment. Subscribe to the YouTube page, Minding My Black Ass Business, and follow me on all social platforms. Until next time, bye.